Hello there and welcome to World News Program, streaming to you live on All 24 News. I'm your host, Kirifa Zachary, and up next are the top stories. Dozens of martyrs have been killed in a Zionist massacre at a school sheltering displaced people west of Deir el-Balah. In just one day, 41 Palestinians were killed in 4 separate massacres. The occupation's bombing in Rafah has also intensified. Palestinians are being evacuated again south of Khan Yunis. The UN says 190,000 have been displaced in just 4 days. And UNRWA calls Gaza's relief worker death toll the worst in UN history. That's next. Also coming up, the Sahrawi government announces France's support for Morocco as a dangerous escalation and accuses Paris of complicity in genocide. Sahrawis pledge to continue their struggle by all legitimate means. Stay tuned, the details are right after the break. Hello again and welcome to the details. First off in our news file, 31 Palestinians including 15 children and 8 women were killed in a Zionist massacre at a school housing displaced people in Deir el-Balah. Dozens were injured and Al-Aqsa Martyrs Hospital is overwhelmed with casualties as rescue teams continue to retrieve bodies. The report is signed by Zahra Frajani.
The Zionist entity has committed another horrific massacre, killing at least 30 people and wounding more than 100 in an UNRWA-run school, the newest target of the occupation forces. The Khadija school, crowded with hundreds of displaced people, is located in Deir el-Balah, central Gaza, an area devastated by the ongoing Zionist war of extermination for 10 consecutive months.
The Israeli occupation forces targeted Khadija school in Deir el-Balah, a school that houses thousands of displaced people whose homes have been destroyed and who have not found shelters or places to house their children, women and their families. Unfortunately, it was hit and 24 people were killed in this school, and the number is still likely to increase because most of the injuries that arrived at the hospitals are very serious.
In the early hours of Saturday, Zionist aircraft launched a series of raids on a field hospital and a prayer hall inside the targeted Khadija school. Despite Deir el-Balah being designated as a humanitarian and safe zone by the occupying forces, their warplanes bombed the crowded school with at least 3 missiles, scattering the body parts of many victims.
I was sitting in the tent at our neighbors. I heard heavy strikes. I started running. My daughter was in one place and I was in another. I saw people running towards the place that was struck. The people sheltering in Khadija school are all wounded. They are innocent and this should not have happened to them.
I was sitting at the door, but suddenly there were strikes. Instead of going out, I ran into the school because it protects me. It houses a medical center and it's not supposed to be targeted. I fled inside the school because it's a safe place and I'm displaced from here. And while I was fleeing, I saw stones, people flying, heads, legs and hands, and I was shocked by the scene.
With most medical facilities out of service, medical teams faced extreme difficulties in treating the wounded, the majority of whom had serious and critical injuries. The massacre in Deir el-Balah against innocent civilians is another episode in the unending series of Zionist crimes, which have continued for 10 consecutive months. These crimes appear to have received further political and military support from Western powers, who protect and sponsor the entity and its massacres.
And speaking of massacres, in the last 24 hours, Zionist occupation forces have carried out 4 more massacres in Gaza, killing 41 Palestinians and injuring 103. The Palestinian Ministry of Health reports the total death toll from the aggression since October 7th has now reached 39,258, with 90,589 wounded. 5 Palestinians were killed and others injured in a Zionist airstrike targeting a house north of Rafah city on Saturday. The bombing hit a residential home in the Masbah area, killing 5 and wounding dozens. Dozens of Palestinians were killed and injured in Zionist raids on various areas of Khan Yunis. Medical sources report that 14 martyrs have arrived at Nasser Medical Complex. The Palestinian Civil Defense recovered 5 martyrs and several wounded from a bombing near Abbasan roundabout. Occupation artillery targeted homes and tents in Kizan and Najjar and Kizan Abu Rashwan, as well as the Karara area. The Zionist occupation has issued new evacuation orders, forcibly displacing thousands of Palestinians from areas south of Khan Yunis. The UN estimates that over 190,000 Palestinians have fled the city in the past 4 days, with many displaced families still without shelter. Sofian Kinturi reports now.
Gazans are fleeing Khan Yunis after the Zionist army issued new evacuation orders from the southern Gaza Strip. The Zionist forces expanded on Saturday its operation in and around Khan Yunis, where tens of thousands of Palestinians have already been displaced. We were surprised that the occupation was dropping leaflets on large residential areas and asking people to leave, despite the occupation having previously announced that these were safe areas and that people have returned there. The UN Office for Humanitarian Affairs reported that over 180,000 people have fled the fighting in Khan Yunis since the Zionist army's new aggression began on Monday. Recent intensified hostilities in the Khan Yunis area, more than 9 months into the Israeli war, have fueled new waves of internal displacement across Gaza. About 182,000 people have been displaced from central and eastern Khan Yunis between Monday and Thursday, while hundreds of other people remain stranded in eastern Khan Yunis. On the other hand, Palestinian news agency Wafa reported that Zionist warplanes targeted an apartment belonging to Abu Tayyar family in Abbasan al-Kabira, east of Khan Yunis, killing 4 people. The square in the populous area of the Abbasan al-Kabira came under attack. This is a marked spot, and all the people killed there were civilians. The attack left a large number of casualties. Some have been taken on auto rickshaws and cars. The ambulances cannot enter because the occupation forces are targeting anything moving in the area. The escalating violence has intensified the humanitarian crisis in Gaza, with increasing numbers of displaced residents struggling to find safety. The situation remains unsolidified as international calls for de-escalation continue.
The Palestinian Ministry of Health announced that several primary care centers and medical points in Khan Yunis are now out of service. Centers including Bani Suhaila, Jor Alu, Tabasan, and Karara, along with several field medical points, are affected due to the forced evacuations in southern Gaza Strip. And in reactions, Philippe Lazzarini, the Commissioner General of UNRWA, has called the number of staff killed in Gaza the largest loss of UN employees, in history. He revealed on X that the death toll among UNRWA teams from Zionist bombings has reached 200 since the war began on Gaza on October 7th.
When the war in Gaza began about 10 months ago, no one expected this bleak situation. Around 200 UNRWA staff members in Gaza have been killed. These are our colleagues and friends, teachers, doctors, nurses, engineers, and support staff who supported the community. Many were killed with their families and others while on duty. This is the largest loss of UN staff in a single conflict or disaster since the UN's founding, a reality the world must not accept.
The Commissioner General of UNRWA has urged further the UN Secretary General to hold the Zionist occupation accountable for targeting relief teams and UN agency employees.
I reiterate the UN Secretary General's call for full accountability for each of these deaths. We owe this to their families, friends, colleagues, and the broader humanitarian community.
And in another reaction, the Palestinian presidency confirmed that the U.S. support has fueled Zionist aggression, including the recent massacre at a school in Deir el-Balah. Spokesman Nabil Abu-Rudaini blamed the American administration and Congress for enabling these attacks with weapons, political and financial support shielded by U.S. bias. Two Palestinians were killed and 22 others were injured in a Zionist drone strike on Balata camp east of Nablus. The Palestinian Red Crescent reported that a paramedic was also injured during the evacuation. A large Zionist force stormed the camp in the evening amid heavy gunfire and explosions.
We were sitting safely. Suddenly we saw the army entering the area and saw clashes between them and the young men. The young men were in this area, which was destroyed. Seconds later, we saw a drone that targeted them. A child and another man were killed and they were injured. Some were critical and are being treated now.
On Saturday still, Zionist occupation forces launched a broad arrest campaign detaining at least 40 Palestinians from the West Bank, including children and former prisoners. The arrests were concentrated in Qalqilya and Nablus, with additional detentions across the West Bank. Since October 7th, the number of arrests has surpassed 9,840, according to the Prisoners Club and the Commission of Prisoners and Freed Prisoners Affairs. Over 75 American organizations have called for a ban on arms supplies to the Zionist entity, accusing it of using U.S. support and weapons to kill around 40,000 Palestinians in Gaza. In a joint statement, the groups criticized President Biden's administration for participating in the extermination of Palestinians by arming the occupation. They also condemned the U.S. Congress's reception of Netanyahu, who faces international war crime investigations, as an affront to human rights and democratic values.
We cannot pretend that we are working for peace while at the same time sending weapons that enable atrocities to be committed. So we call on you to immediately stop the sale, transfer, and shipment of all weapons to the Israeli government in order to save lives. The Netanyahu government has taken advantage of American support and weapons to kill nearly 40,000, including 15,000 children, and wipe out entire generations of Palestinian families in Gaza.
To other topical news now, the occupation forces admitted that at least 10 Zionists were killed and others injured in a missile attack on sites in the occupied Syrian Golan Heights. They acknowledged launching 40 shells towards the Majd al-Shams area, which caused the casualties. Meanwhile, Hezbollah denied any involvement in the missile attack. In Lebanon, the Ministry of Health reported 490 deaths and 2,016 injuries from Zionist raids on southern cities since October 7th. The ministry's statement revealed that 95 of the victims were Lebanese citizens, with 44% of deaths attributed to shock and the rest to explosions and chemical exposure. To another important development, but this time in Africa, the Sahrawi government has condemned France's support for the so-called autonomy plan as a dangerous escalation, warning of severe consequences for regional peace, security, and stability. In a statement, the Sahrawi Ministry of Foreign Affairs criticized France's hostile stance against the Sahrawi people's right to freedom, independence, and self-determination.
The government of the Sahrawi Republic condemns the French government's reaffirmation of its hostile stance towards the Sahrawi people's right to freedom and independence. This serious escalation threatens regional peace, security, and stability.
The Sahrawi government emphasized that the Sahrawi people's unwavering determination to continue their struggle and resistance by all legitimate means.
Its supporters The Sahrawi people will thwart the plans of the Moroccan occupation and its supporters, including France. They remain determined to continue their struggle by all legitimate means, including armed resistance, to defend their right to freedom, independence and sovereignty over the Sahrawi Arab Democratic Republic.
And in a reaction, Ibrahim Boughali, president of Algeria's People's National Assembly, reaffirmed the need to implement UN resolutions in Western Sahara and support Sahrawi self-determination. At a joint press conference with his Tunisian counterpart, he stressed the importance of using dialogue to address crises in the Sahel and the Arab world.
We also discussed with my brother Ibrahim Bouderbala the situation in Western Sahara, where I reiterated the Algerian position related to the need to implement the United Nations resolutions and to allow the Sahrawi people to access their right to self-determination. This meeting was also an opportunity to address other issues, including deterioration of the situation in the Arab world and in the Sahel region, and the worsening of conflicts in several regions, which requires giving priority to dialogue and consultation. The Algerian position and Tunisian position are identical positions. It's imperative to move towards Libyan solution without foreign interference. The next Algerian-Tunisian-Libyan trial meeting will be promising and will have a regional and international impact. We hope that our brothers in Libya will take positive positions to resolve the problem at the internal level, rejecting all attempts at influence from abroad.
And in the Libyan file, Ibrahim Boughali, president of the National People's Assembly in Algeria, confirmed after meeting his Tunisian counterpart, Ibrahim Bouderbala, that both Tunisia and Algeria share the same stance on the Libyan crisis. They emphasized the need for a Libyan solution without foreign intervention.
We discussed the recommendations of the first consultative meeting of the Summit of Leaders of Algeria, Tunisia and Libya, held last April in Tunisia, in particular on the measures taken to revive all avenues of cooperation between our countries. In this regard, we discussed the latest developments in the situation in Libya, a brother country, an opportunity for me to reiterate the need to find a Libyan solution without foreign or external interference.
And in Morocco, 21 people have died due to a severe heat wave over the past 2 days. There are growing accusations against the government for its failure to address the situation. Moroccan parliament members have called for the resignation of Health Minister Khalid Talib and an investigation into the death or the high death toll, citing the inability of health facilities to handle the crisis since the heat wave began on Monday.
Fes is known for its continental climate, meaning high summer temperatures. Since childhood, I've known heat as a problem in Fes, but temperatures have significantly risen in recent years. We're unsure if this is due to climate change, but the city definitely lacks water, making the heat feel even more intense.
People in Fas seek refuge near fountains and green spaces. Currently, there are no green areas or pools to escape the heat. People hide under trees. Fas is suffering from extremely high temperatures, making it nearly impossible to walk in the streets.
And on Saturday, Russia announced it had taken control of a village in the Donetsk region and 2 villages in the Kharkiv region of eastern Ukraine. The Russian Ministry of Defense reported that the center group captured the village of Lasovtaskoye in Donetsk, causing Ukrainian losses of 540 soldiers. On Saturday still, Russia reported destroying 21 Ukrainian drones in Kursk, Belgorod, Rostov, Bernyansk and Lipetsk, as well as Ryazan. Ukraine's air forces said it downed 4 Russian drones and a missile over Dnipro, Poltava, Kharkiv and Kiev. Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov called the nuclear planning agreement between Washington and Seoul worrying. At a press conference during the ASEAN meetings, Lavrov accused the US, Japan and South Korea of escalating tensions and militarizing their presence around the Korean peninsula.
Another worrying element is that the United States recently concluded an agreement with the Republic of Korea on joint nuclear planning. So far, we have not even been able to get an explanation of what this means, but we have no doubt that this causes additional concern. Moreover, they are trying to pull Japan into this scheme of joint nuclear planning.
Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni arrived in Beijing on Saturday for a multi-day visit aimed at seeking China's support to end the war in Ukraine. The visit, which will continue until Wednesday, includes meetings with Chinese leaders. Italian Foreign Minister Antonio Tajani confirmed that Meloni's talks are focused on persuading Beijing to help resolve the ongoing conflict.
China may play a significant role in persuading Russia. There is also a desire on our part to see Beijing as a peace mediator. We must strive for peace, but it must be a just peace.
And finally in our news, during the Olympic opening ceremony on Friday, the Algerian delegation honored the martyrs of October 17, 1961 massacre by throwing flowers into the Seine River as their boat passed the bridge where the Algerians were killed. On that day, French police executed hundreds of peaceful Algerian demonstrators, either by shooting them or drowning them in the river. And with this, ladies and gentlemen, our news program comes to a close. For more updates, you can always check our social media platforms. That's it for me and for the rest of the team. Thank you for tuning in. Till next time, take care.